So with that, the first thing that we have on our agenda is recap of the elections that we'll hear from Jim Irizarry from the elections office. And after that, we will talk about outreach. So Jim, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Great to see you here. On behalf of Mark Church and everyone at elections here, our elections team, Happy New Year. It's great to be here. It has been quite a year, and it is going to be quite a year that is coming up in elections in preparation for the presidential primary, which all indications are it will be held in March, although that's still somewhat in the defined stage, but we know that there's a high likelihood that March will be the day, according to the registrar of voters that we have been talking to. This was a big year in elections. It was the largest gubernatorial election ever held in San Mateo County in terms of the number of ballot styles, in terms of the number of districts, in terms of the number of candidates. And this was the result of the conversions of many laws that came into play this year. 2022 was the year that SB 415 required all jurisdictions to hold their elections, their governing board elections, on even numbered years. And in addition to that, the big one, of course, was census and redistricting. Of course, we're under the California Voters' Choice Act, which creates an election model that has a lot of moving parts to it. But in effect, what it has done is increased the number of registered voters that actually participate in an election. We send a ballot to every registered voter in San Mateo County, and it has had the effect of increasing voter participation and engagement. And a lot of that, of course, also thanks to the Voter Education and Outreach Committee, which is part of the Voters' Choice Act in terms of advisory committees participating in the administration of elections. We have had a very successful year and experience with the Voters' Choice Act in people coming into the electoral process by design. Every voter in San Mateo County is personally touched with a postcard, notices about the election, instructions, sample ballots. We spend over $500,000 a year on voter education and outreach in media advertising across all lines, all languages, etc. The other thing that made it very large this year was also new laws relating to languages. We added a new Filipino language, which again increased the number of voters that we actually reach out to. Let me give you just some general overview statistics of the election. This election, we had 432,000 registered voters, and that was out of 516,000 eligible voters. We had 252 candidates, 198 of them were actually on the ballot. Very, very busy in candidate filing. These are easy statistics to rattle off, but believe me, when we talk about 432 registered voters, that means every registered voter gets a ballot, and that ballot has to be developed by our official ballot team and our sample ballot team, which in and of itself is quite a technical feat, given all of the jurisdictions, all of the candidates, all of the residences, all of our voter registration file. It is amazing putting together the ballot. I know that we look at the ballot at the very end and we see boxes that we can check, but to get to that point is really quite an incredible task and feat. As I mentioned, we had 198 on candidates on ballot. That's because some offices did not have actual contests. We had 198 seats up for election. This is a real kicker in terms of when you're talking about the size of an election, is how many ballot styles, how many ballot types are there in an election? And just for those of you who are relatively new to elections, one ballot style is unique to that particular voter and that particular voter's address. It encompasses the main jurisdiction of city, the special district, school district, water district, and now individual jurisdictional districts. And that has to be defined for every voter. So we merged our 432,000 registered voters, our voter registration file, and our assessor's database with our GIS system, we create basically the official ballot. And all of the precincts we have, part of our GIS system has our elections. We have an elections precinct layer that's built upon our assessors layer. That precinct layer, those registered voters layer, our elections information management system all have to meld to create one of those ballot styles. Multiply those 190 ballot styles, which in and of itself is more ballot style than we've ever had before. Multiply it by 4 languages, we had 780 different ballot styles in this election. When we go around the state, we're a relatively small jurisdiction in terms of people. You know, we have what, 770,000 residents, 430,000 registered voters. But when we go around and we're part of the Bay Area Registrar of Voters group, or we go to the state of California, and we tell them we have 190 ballot styles, and we have, you know, over 80 jurisdictions, more than that, that participate in the election. It really is jaw-dropping. San Mateo County, while small in size in terms of people, is a huge elections operation because of the number of cities that we have. We have 20 cities in San Mateo County, which is more cities than any other city in the Bay Area. That includes Santa Clara, that includes a huge county of Alameda. You know, we have more cities than the county of San Diego. When you picture about the complexity of an election, think of San Francisco. They have 1 city, 1 county, 1 school district. That's it. That's their ballot style. With us, there is a plethora of jurisdictions that have to come into play here. So just to give you a perspective of the complexity of the work that the elections team puts together all the way from the top to the bottom. There were 132 jurisdictions on the ballot. We have 70 jurisdictions. I kind of mentioned, you know, 80, no, but when you start breaking them down into districts, we have a total of 132 jurisdictions on the ballot. That adds to the ballot styles that have to be created. I mentioned 252 contests and open offices. We had 20 local measures and 12 state propositions. In terms of our infrastructure, most of you are aware of it. We are under the Voters' Choice Act, which is an elections model that brings together vote by mail. It brings together also a remote accessible vote by mail component everyone has access to. We have 55 drop-box locations, 45 vote centers, 3 pop-up vote centers, 3 ballot pickup service locations, and we provide curbside ballot drop-off at 20 vote centers this last election. In terms of our voting equipment and technology, again, this is the mechanical heart of our system, and we have 378 ICX ballot marking tablets. Those are, in common terms, a voting machine. Of course, not when you vote on a machine, it does not get entered into the machine. It basically prints a ballot, and that gets scanned and entered onto our system. So voting machines do not store any data at all. We have 378 of them throughout our 48 vote centers, 49 vote centers. We had 121 mobile ballot printers. That's critical for being able to print a ballot for any San Mateo County resident that goes to a vote center. We have the capability, because of these mobile ballot printers, to print an official ballot for their particular ballot style and jurisdiction. We have 260 10X poll books, commonly known as e-poll books. That also is really critical to our operation because it facilitates the ability of people to come and in real time, when they go to a vote center, determine their voter registration status and immediately issue an official ballot. It saves time. It has reduced the number of people we have in line waiting, and it also provides just a whole bunch of software that allows us with dashboards to track our time. The 10X poll book allows us to create our wait time widget, which is on our website. Any voter can see exactly what the waiting line is on every vote center and make a determination which vote center they want to go to. That one won an award, several awards, as a matter of fact. I'll cover some of the awards that we have accomplished this last couple of years. Cradle Point, a Cradle Point is basically a VPN. It is a tunnel between our vote centers and the California voter registration database. It's new technology that really solidifies encrypted data going through that it makes it really hard to compromise. Because keep in mind, you know, one of the biggest areas that we have here in terms of concerns are cybersecurity concerns, and the Cradle points go a long way to securing the transfer of that data so it does not get compromised. And then another thing we won an award for, which is really creative, and I'm surprised that more election offices throughout the state in the United States use, is we created a GPS ballot box tracking device. That means every ballot box that we have going to a vote center has a GPS device on it. That means we can bring it up on a screen, call it bingo board, and we will know exactly where that ballot box is at any moment in time. This is particularly critical on election night when we're tracking all of the ballot boxes to get back to Election Central so we can scan those ballots and report the results on election night. That is an incredible program. It won a national award, and as an example, good government, good technology, innovations in elections. A couple of features that we have here in San Mateo County that again are pretty much models in elections, and others are also implementing these, but we again take pride in being one of the first to do these. We talked about remote accessible vote by mail. We were the first in the state to develop a remote accessible vote by mail program and expanded to all voters, where people can call in. They be provided a link, and on that link, they can on their computer be able to actually access their ballot. They can then vote on that ballot, but they have to print it and then mail it into us. That is extremely beneficial for voters that have visual impairments and disabilities, especially if they have screen readable technology, to be able to vote from the ease and convenience of their home, just like everyone else. Mobile Vote Center, a new innovation that we deployed a couple of years ago. Again, very popular. We go to areas that are hard to reach. We also go to areas that are easy to reach. For example, shopping centers, Hillsdale Shopping Center. A real popular one was in Half Moon Bay at the airport, right there off Highway 1. It just makes voting easy and convenient for everyone. We've got some very good coverage on that. And people have commented, wow, you bring voting to the people. And that is our philosophy here. And then Where's My Ballot is, again, a program that's out there for some time, but it's been refined and enhanced by the state of California, that you can actually track your ballot and receive text and email alerts on its journey to you and its journey back to elections. Just a really high level, just to give you the, a little bit of the magnitude of the operation when we're in full swing. We deployed over 412 staff, 125 volunteers, 125 student volunteers, which is another program that we received an award for nationally, our student democracy program. We were a pioneer of that 26 years ago, and it is going strong today. And it is really critical for a successful election, because they handle, a variety of things at vote centers, from the curbside ballot drop-off to line management, an incredible effort that the students put forth. We had over 115 multilingual, 28 languages are represented other than English. Our vote by mail unit hires 100 employees. We have 12 signature verifiers, our phone bank, 15 employees, voter registration, 5, candidate filing, 10. And then our warehouse, as you can see, has about over 70 people. Just in terms of some high level election statistics in comparison, we have in 2022, we had 252,000 ballots were actually received. Vote by mail ballots were 234,000. We had vote center ballots 17,000. BVM returned before election day was about 50%. We usually say we get about 60%, 50%. A lot of people this election are waiting to election day, not just to vote in person, but to also mail their ballot. And that's for a variety of reasons. But usually it was 60% before. Now you can see that dropping a little bit. People like to drop their ballots off to an election official to make sure it gets to us. And then, vote center votes before election day was 21.92%. The majority of vote center votes occur on election day. And those are some of the historic highs in our county. I know I'm going quickly because we have a large agenda here at VEOAC. This is just, again, an overview of our voter education and outreach. Again, a lot of creativity thanks to you folks and the efforts that you put forth. It really is the heart of our voter education and outreach program. We also have our statutory committees of the VEOAC, Voting Accessibility Committee, and we have the LAC, our Language Accessibility Advisory Committee. And the three of those committees working together are pretty effective in getting the word out. Our efforts to use community-based organizations. We have been approached by officials at the California CACEO, election officials or association, asking us a little bit more about that, how we work with our community-based organizations to do that. And it really has a positive effect on youth language minorities. And we go one step further too. We were the only county to actually contract after the Voters' Choice Act with Dr. Mindy Romero to do an analysis of the Voters' Choice Act and how effective it was here in San Mateo County. And those reports of 2 elections were recently shared with everyone. One of the things that we're very proud here in our department, both at the ACRE level, just for those of you that aren't fully aware of what ACRE stands for, it's the Assessor, County Clerk, Recorder, and Elections. We are the largest consolidated department in the state of California, and probably the most complex operation when it comes to putting all of these divisions together. Our various divisions were very successful with all of the innovations that we have, particularly in technology and in elections, of actually receiving national awards from the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission, from the National Association of Counties, from the Board of Supervisors, and really the story goes on and on. And then most recently, we received an inaugural award for outstanding service to voters, and this, again, in large part, our efforts with advisory groups, community-based organizations, and we were honored with an award from the Disability Rights of California for our efforts in those areas. On that note, I'll turn it back to you, Petra, and any questions from anybody.
Thank you, Jim. As usual, those were really interesting and comprehensive numbers. Does anybody have any questions for Jim?
Well, I've seen a lot of people posting, asking to get copies of the slides in the chat.
They are yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a quiet group. Usually we have lots of questions for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us kind of what you talked about, that there's a lot to prepare for the next election? What is kind of top of mind for you between now and next March?
Well, first of all, is defining election day, which it appears is going to be in March, number one. Number two, in terms of us locally, we are embarking upon an ADA upgrade of our facility, which we need to complete before presidential primary starts, which signatures in lieu really start by the end of October and November. So we are on a real tight time frame, and I hope we can pull it off. I know our VEOAC has been working with us for many years to get this ADA remodel up and going. We will have an elevator that will serve the disabled community from the first floor to the top. That was probably one of the biggest components of our remodel, but every aspect of that facility is going to be brought up to Americans with Disability Act standards. It was built in the 60s, so it was grandfathered in many respects to those current standards. But Mr. Church, one of his primary objectives has been for many years, and it's really been a battle to get the funds for it to upgrade the facility. And we were successful this year. Now we just have to work with DPW to make sure it happens. One of the biggest challenges that we're all having, number one, is recruitment for staff. These are big elections, they're huge elections. And because of the negative publicity that's been out there with elections security, both for the physical plant and also employees, we have had a challenge in recruiting for employees. We contract out when we find that we don't have enough with employment vendors to do that. And even they are somewhat apprehensive of getting into the elections arena. So we're toying with a couple of ideas. We have to find those a little bit better with Mr. Church as how we might be able to do that. Some counties have, in our last conference, had the Board of Supervisors designate every county employee as a disaster service worker, which comes with the territory, but then that allows us to actually allocate people if we don't have enough to an election. But that is basically conceptual at this time. Mark has to look at that and determine, with the board if that's something we want to do. But we have a problem with respect to recruitment for a variety of reasons. And this is a very technical operation. Our vote center reps have to have, some technology skills and skill sets. In terms of the actual election, it's going to be huge. We have not only the presidential primary, but also the presidential general that's coming on down. The same statistics that you saw with respect to the number of jurisdictions, participations that are going to be going on from a variety of sources, candidates, political parties, etc. It is a huge election. And this is, again, where we're very fortunate to have the investment in elections that we do have in this county for the technology and the people. But the other area that is of utmost concern is cybersecurity and mis and disinformation. That can destroy the integrity of an election in a heartbeat. So we must be out there at all times letting people know that voting is safe and secure. All of our data is safe, it's encrypted, and it's protected. However, you can see the federal government this day, this week, and the airline situation that occurred recently, which some rumors have it out there could have been a ransomware attack that occurred in 3 different nations, Canada, the Philippines, the United States, where air traffic was just stopped in one day. Now, if they can, and this is happening with power grids throughout our national critical infrastructure, there are vulnerabilities out there, and we lose sleep over them, but we take a lot of pride that we do an excellent job with the resources that we have, both with the federal government, with our ISD, and our own internal resources that we use to protect our data, to protect our election systems. But that's a danger out there that we lose sleep over, really. But we're doing an incredibly good job there, and we feel confident. We really do feel confident there. The other one that's really hard is mis and disinformation. Some websites get pirated, misinformation up there. It's incredible some of the things that have been going on nationally, and that can go on from criminals to nation states that are trying to undermine the integrity of the elections in the United States. So we all must be vigilant. You see something that doesn't appear right, report it. Report it to us. We'll report it to the Secretary of State. We'll report it to the Department of Homeland Security. We don't play around with that. But you're our eyes and ears, and you need to let us know if you see something that just doesn't seem right. So in a nutshell, those are the areas that we're planning for, and we've got a lot on our plate, even though it's an off year, and we do have some elections that are being planned also that are special elections coming down the pipe.
Thank you, Jim. And in your presentation, you mentioned the LAC and the VEOAC, which are kind of our sister committees. And so we'd love to hear an update from Sarah O'Brien about what's going on with them.
Thank you. I wanted to let you know that we are going to have a VEOAC meeting this Thursday, and that's from 10:30 a.m. until noon. The information on connecting, it's a virtual meeting. The Teams information to connect is on our website, or you can send an email to me. I'd be happy to share it with you. we have it on our events calendar on our website. Mostly it will be, going over some of the things we just discussed and talking about the ADA remodel. Then on Monday, we're meeting a week later than usual for the LAC because of the holiday. And they're going to only meet for an hour. It's going to be a meeting Monday from 11:30 to 12:30. And again, info's available through me or our events calendar. And they're going to be talking about some of the different outreach in different languages that we've done. To segue into that, we do the outreach in at least 4 languages. But, we also, for example, our ads, in addition to Filipino, English, Spanish, and Chinese, we do them in Japanese, Hindi, and Korean. Now, next time we'll have, I now know of a Burmese newspaper locally. I was having trouble connecting with the Burmese community, but fortunate enough actually to hire a part-time outreach person who is Burmese. So she was very helpful in giving me lots of connections to that community. Again, a tough community to encourage to vote. We really, they're not feeling like it's something that they would regularly do. So additional education in that way. Really quick, I'll, wrote down some things while Jim was speaking about, we did things, say direct voter contact. He mentioned the 2 postcards to all 432,000 voters, 1 postcard to most of them at the end to encourage them to send in their ballots, and a postcard to some 100,000 households in Daly City area and East Palo Alto area to encourage them to register and provide election info. Most of you have seen our different elections materials. You've seen we do quarter sheets, bookmarks, vote center, and Dropbox posters. We do conditional voter registration flyers, and you've seen most recently the parolee information. We added one more this time, and that was homeless fact sheet to provide information to people who are currently without stable housing, and that seemed to be of great interest this time. Good reception to that. And in addition to providing it to the organizations we work with here on the VEOAC, we delivered them to food banks and libraries, homeless shelters, senior centers, for examples, ethnic markets. Let me see, Second Harvest food distribution, libraries, I think I mentioned. One of the things that I think was fun, this was Jim's idea, was to send out to schools, contact them about future voter and I voted stickers and see what kind of interest they had. And we were able, with contacting the schools in the county, to send out 16,000 future voter stickers and nearly, well, over 6,000 of the I voted stickers. So just wanted to mention that to our local elementary schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. 16,000 is quite a number. Are there any other updates from the elections division before we move on to outreach? Okay, great. So what we wanted to do now was kind of talk about what kind of outreach we did. We'd love to hear highlights. And I'm going to turn it first over to my colleague, Yahaira.
Alrighty. Oh, can everybody hear me? Yes, awesome. So we were reflecting a little bit about what we did over this last election, and we wanted to share with you all some of our outreach and then give you all an opportunity to tell each other what you learned, some challenges, some successes in this last November election. And on this slide, these are some of the items that we provided for some of our election outreach partners. And on the left-hand side, you can see our voting card, our pledge card that we created at Thrive in order to promote voting. There's a study that if you sign something saying that you'll vote, right, it'll most likely happen. It's a probability that Sarah shared with us a few VEOACs ago. And then on the right of that, you can see we created a one-pager, easy one-pager, why to vote, how will we vote, when can I vote, how do I learn more, and who can vote. It's just everything that you need to know about voting, and we were able to translate that into Spanish. And this is an easy one-page flyer. It's the replica of our brochure, but we found that some people needed both different copies just in case they were doing door-to-door or they were doing tabling. It just depends on the organization's needs. So we actually created this for a special organization, and it turned out to be a success for all of the other 12. So it's just very simple, easy information with QR codes and very brief information about all you need to know for voting. On the right of that, we created our fun stickers, which everyone is excited for, especially the youth, for the future voter stickers. We had a lot of comments from our debriefs with our 12 election partners that they were really excited to give out these stickers, and people were really excited to get them. It's quite odd how our society works, right? Like stickers really motivate a set group of people, and it's exciting that they want to be part of it. So here are the materials that we provided, along with like everything else that was shared during our VEOACs meetings. And I wanted to share with you all some of the organizations we partnered with. And I'm gonna get the name wrong, but the top one is Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. And then we had examples like the League of Women Voters, Coastside Hope, BACAC, Bay Area Community Health Advisory Council, Nuestra Casa, Bellhaven Action, Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, and many more. I see some of you here on this call, so I really want to say Thrive appreciates you and our partnership during this election and in the primary election. It's always a joy to work with you all, so really excited to share some of the data we found. When we asked our 12 partners if you learned anything, here are some quotes that we learned. We asked, what did you learn during this election cycle? And then somebody responded, more people than expected do not know how to vote. And I know this is shocking to this committee, right? But this is why the work is very important, the work that you all are leading in your organizations. It's making a difference, right? Like very established organizations are still realizing there's still hard communities that they haven't reached out to, and this past election was the prime example of some of those communities that they were able to reach out to. Another quote that I got was, there is outdated election information still circulating, and this is more specifically, I don't want to alarm anyone, but this is more specifically to the work that the Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, that organization works a lot with incarcerated people and people on parole, and they just want to increase awareness for people who are incarcerated to exercise their right to vote. And part of this November outreach program partnership that they had with Thrive was creating an awareness campaign where people on parole, letting people know that people on parole do have the right to vote as of this last year. And they found that there's still some old information, old forms that have just outdated information, and they want to increase awareness. And I wish they were on the call. Maybe they could share a little bit more about their findings, but you'll see them at the next VEOAC. Then we asked some folks, would you do this again, right? Like, would you partner with Thrive? Would you join us at our trainings and everything else? And some of the answers were excited. all the answers were exciting. Here's some. Nuestra casa, Maritza, was said, absolutely yes. Claro que sí. She said it with excitement. She's on here. Not to call you out, Maritza, but it's just a beautiful response. And we always look forward to partnering with all of you. And other organizations, definitely yes, right? The sentiment is that they would do this again, and Thrive really made it easy for people to get involved in these elections, especially organizations that don't do as much civic participation. And then on the right, you see a pie chart. I just wanted to share some of the outreach that was popular in my debrief call. So some folks said that they did door to door. A lot of people had in-person or virtual events, and most of the people provided some of that information through social media, through flyers, newsletters. And so this is just some ways that people were spreading the information. And on the next slide, you can see just examples of things that were out there circulating. On the left-hand side, it's just videos that different organizations made, posts for various events going on. We have the pros and cons with the league here. Good to Know had an event at the park where they just met people within their community and it's a really smart idea to go to the park. You talk to the parents, you give a sticker to the kids, right? It's such a cute idea to get people involved. So here are some examples of just the amount of work that people were putting in. I know there's a lot more out there, and you might see more of those in the later conversations. So now I just want to go over, and lastly, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors who really provided us the opportunity to have these partnerships with our 12 organizations. I really appreciate it. And you can see, and you're going to hear, the impact is real, and they really appreciate all the work that we put in together. So I will kick off the share out section by talking about
Actually, I'm going to
just
interrupt
asking
you
you
for
all
just
to
a
share
second.
what's your memorable election moments of the year, some challenges and successes, any voter education highlights you had or lessons learned. And I will pass it over to Diane, who is part of the San Francisco People Power, and she's able to share with us some of her lessons learned. And you
Okay.
can popcorn it off, Diane.
Okay. So good
Before you
morning.
start-
Go ahead, Petra.
Sorry, before you start, I just want to call out to the Grove Foundation because they're actually on the call today. And it was through a conversation with them that we came up with the idea of the toolkit, and they helped fund it. So we're really grateful. I think we all know that the best way to do outreach is a million different ways. And so to have this as an additional tool was super helpful. So thank you very much to the Grove Foundation for the leadership on that. So Diane.
Okay, so San Francisco Peninsula People Power in the past has done a lot of outreach events, but given the growth in the community-based organizations going out and doing events, there wasn't as much of a need for us to do so. But we did go to one in October, the Casa Ya Hansa Festival up in Daly City, which targets the Filipino community. And the thing that was great about doing that event is we didn't just do it by ourselves. We partnered with other organizations like Northeast Medical Services, the Bay Area Health Council, the Bay Area Community Health Advisory Council, the Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. We had Eric and Penny from there. And also from San Francisco Peninsula People Power, Bill Newell and Charmaine Messina, who's also on the Language Accessibility Committee, which is great because she was able to interact directly with, especially with some of the older folks that came by. So the lessons learned there was, one is partnering with other organizations just really made our presence there even more valuable because we could cover a lot of different areas. And what Jess did from the Northeast Medical Services is she brought COVID-19 test kits. And so we had 100 of those that, again, it was a way to get people to the table. We could give them something. We had a lot of interactions with individuals. What we did learn was not a lot of people will pick up paper and take it away, but because there were other organizations that had tables at this event, I was able to give You know, a lot of quarter sheets in different languages to the CalFresh people, to the PBRC folks, and even with the unhoused, fact sheet, talking with police officers who were walking around the event, being able to hand them several copies of this flyer. And so that's something that I think in terms of other ways to distribute the information is really looking at law enforcement and getting the information to the sheriff's office and the various city police departments so that they're aware, because they're obviously sometimes the first and maybe only contact with unhoused folks. We also gave a lot of whatever was left over to Skyline College as well, because they were doing a weekly voter registration event. The other thing that I did, I'm also an ombudsman in San Mateo County. And this year we were trying to really engage seniors that live in long-term care, because what a lot of them don't realize is when they move into a long-term care facility that they need to update their voter registration. So what we learned from this was we needed to start earlier. We unfortunately got started pretty late. So we were registering people at the end of October. Learned that one thing that's very important when you're working with seniors is really a one-on-one interaction where we would be sitting down with them at the table, going through the voter registration form, and also learning that we need to get one of these signature guides, because it's really hard because they don't have fine motor skills anymore, is showing them where to actually sign the voter registration form. We can fill it out, but they still need to sign it. And we also tried for the first time some ballot parties where we went to the Sunrise in Belmont and went through the ballot with people. So again, what we learned there is we need to do all of this earlier. So doing the voter registration probably more in September so that we can start doing the ballot parties in October. So those are probably the main things that we learned, because we have over 400 facilities in the county and we basically were only able to get into 6. There's a lot of small board and care homes that weren't our focus, but there's a lot of really large facilities. So hopefully, I know our executive director, Bernie, is very interested in continuing to do this. And people just loved it. We had this, I don't know how many of you remember Dining Out with the Habits. George Habit was the writer. He lives at one of these facilities, and we got him to update his voter registration. He's 100 years old and he hadn't voted in a while. So people were very, very gratified and for us coming out to visit them. So I'm going to pass it over to, I don't know, someone from Nuestra Casa. I see we have a couple, I don't know, Vicky or Maritza, who would like to take that on?
Thank you. I feel Maritza. Maritza, you have the voice, please.
Thank you, everyone. This is Maritza from Nuestra Casa. Very excited to be here again. Sorry, but I am a little confused. Do I need to give the report of Nuestra Casa, right?
No, just that. Oh, there we go. Hi, Marita. Just if you want to pick one of the bullet points down below, you can share one or two sentences about.
I got it. I'm sorry, I was a little lost. Okay. Well, one of the challenges, it is again, one of the challenges that I actually, you know what? I don't see things like a challenge. So it is like, I always see it in the good way. Maybe this is a challenge, but this is something that we can make. So it's actually not a challenge. That's how I see the thing. And success, of course, I want to talk about success because I think behind every challenge there is, and it has to be a success with the work that you do. And so one of the success for me with outreach that we target this small session, right, that we work was the number of voter registration clients, I will say that, or members. So I was very excited to get a few. I was I was taking track of them and, make sure that they did register or pre-register. So I think that was a very success for my own to see how much impact we're doing in the schools that we are connected and in the community. So I'll pass it on to Vicky if you want to say something, or
I'd like to say thank you, Maritza. En nuestra casa was very successful, the border education in the community, especially with the high school students, is the pre. And the other is how the families, the students' families, they want to know what exactly the students are receiving about the information on this topic. So when we are starting with the student, the whole family coming in to know what exactly is happening. So I think it's successful. It's a lesson learned. Thank you. And thank you, Maritza, for working on it.
Yeah, and I think you both are being very shy about the work, but Maritza actually shared that she got a lot of students pre-registered at the high schools for voting. When they're actually ready to vote, they're already pre-registered, ready to go. And I think this is the work that, doesn't get as much shine or highlighted, but I definitely want to say thank you for all the work that you did at the high schools, because that's where it starts, where you have to go start them young. And it's really nice to know that Nuestra Casa cares about the youth in that way. So I'd like to hand it over to Pam.
Good morning, everybody, and good to see you all in the new year. And I'm thrilled that we're still on Zoom. With the organization that I do the most work with, which is Belhaven Empowered, we did the visual kind of outreach by using our platform to keep people informed of what steps they need to do and to remind them and show people how you can vote up to the day of voting. We did partner with the other CBOs in the Belhaven neighborhood, and we all contributed to people that did door-to-door. I think the personalized door-to-door is worked actually the best for us, and there was a capacity issue. I am working on some data that people always like to hear numbers. And one of the things I did find out with some rough numbers is that 87% of the residents in the Belhaven neighborhood are registered voters, and which I was thrilled. I was absolutely thrilled because I didn't realize it was that high, but only 40% voted. So we've already started campaigning for the next election. So at least once a month, we're putting some information in there about here's how 1 vote made a difference. Here's where, 5 votes made a difference, 15, to really emphasize how important it is that everyone registers and votes, and that your vote really does count. And the carrot that we have is that in 2024, we will be having a super visual election. And so that has people excited. If there's something to look forward to. So hopefully we will be partnering also with North Fair Oaks and East Palo Alto to improve all of our numbers. So thank you.
Thank you, Pam. And Petra says lots of super close elections this year in the chat. I'll hand it over to Glenn. Hi, Glenn. How's it going?
Hey here, thank you. And I'm sorry I was late. I had a teaching obligation that went longer than expected, but glad I got to pop in. Hi, and great to hear about everybody's work they were doing. For us, I had to look up the numbers a little bit because it's been a little bit. But we did mostly phone banking efforts and reaching out, and we reached to our former clients and students who are new voters. So we reached over 1,257 people by phone, using a great pool of volunteers, bilingual volunteers, since most of the people we were calling were Spanish speakers. We held a couple events as well, one with Sarah's office, which was great. Thanks for doing that. And also we did, one of the highlights for me was we did a session on all the referendums and propositions in Spanish. and we had a group of bilingual students from Stanford lead that. So it was great because it was a group that the students, they had to be informed to do it, and they're excited to be informed so they could educate. And the people that came, I call them students, but most of them are former clients. It's an all new voters. They had great questions too. So it's great to hear that happening. And one of the hardest parts about California voting is all those complicated propositions. So it was cool to see the questions people brought, and the students really leading the discussion. Anyway, sorry.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for sharing. I know that you all do a lot of phone banking, and it's really necessary to do those pros and cons in Spanish. Marnie, would you like to share?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Happy New Year and great to see everybody. I'm here today representing the Choose Children program through Silicon Valley Community Foundation. It's an initiative that helps work with candidates for office to advocate for the 0 to 5 or young children, babies and toddlers in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. So I worked with League of Women Voters of South San Mateo County earlier in the year through June, and then then focused with the Choose Children program for most of the year. And what we worked with Thrive, who is just an amazing partner. So for the Choose Children program, we did mostly candidate forums, focusing on the supervisor races. So that was District 2 and District 3. So that was most of our election work. And we did voter polling as well earlier in the year on the issues important to families with children. So just a lot of just different kinds of outreach. The voter, outreach that was the challenges and successes that we found were with the candidate forums. And I'm sure Yahaira and Petra have their take on the challenges and successes with candidate forums in the age of recovering from COVID. Earlier in the year, we did only virtual candidate forums, which was still, useful in so many ways. But by September, late August, September, we were able to do in person and decided to do hybrid, so in person and Zoom. And weren't sure if we were going to get the in-person attendance that we were hoping for, but we actually did end up getting that with Half Moon Bay Library, and we had San Mateo County Council Chambers events in both of those places, and actually got a good turnout. So now it's the question of whether we just do Zoom or virtual events or try to move to only in-person events. It's a weird time still. So, and with, next year, we'll be figuring that out, but we're hoping to be more in person as we can. That was a big focus for us. My own personal most memorable election moment was when my senior at Sequoia High School, my daughter, said, "Mom, what's the student democracy program that I'm hearing about through the elections office?" So she actually signed up, got to take the whole day off of school, the whole Tuesday off of school, and she made money, as an elections volunteer, well, not a volunteer, but working at our local vote center. So that was really exciting for me. And yeah, it was a great year. Looking forward to working with everybody. Maybe not so much this year, but maybe late this year and early into next year. So thanks a lot. And I can popcorn it over if you like. Linda Woolen.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? This is Linda Woolen from Supervisor Dave Pine's office. I'm in a new office and still sort of figuring out where my camera is, so apologies. My most memorable moment, I think I shared this with this group before, but Supervisor Pine and I went to Cappuccino High School and did a series of presentations to one of the government classes. And it was about everything, about sort of doing public service, what it means to be an elected official, and also the importance of voting and voter registration. We didn't necessarily get folks to register that day, but I think a lot of people pulled up the application on their phones and they were going to do it later. But the future voter stickers that Yahaira had given me were super, super popular. Everybody wanted one. And that was a really good event to do. And the only sort of word I would have for the future, and this is this year or during an election year, is that many people who serve in elected office are really excited to talk to young people in particular. And if it suits your organization or your event that you're doing, particularly at high schools, if you would like to invite an elected official, certainly I can speak for Supervisor Pine, but many elected officials would be happy to come and support your event or your outreach to students and to talk, really to anyone, community event, but particularly for the high school events, if that helps you. And I'm happy to facilitate introductions to other elected officials if that is helpful. So I will popcorn it. Who hasn't spoken? Margie, if you have something to report.
Thank you, Linda,
Thanks.
for letting all of us know that. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Margie, we can't hear you.
Oh, she says her audio isn't working. So she's not going to make a report, right, Margie? Okay. Who hasn't spoken yet?
You can pass it over to Anna. Sorry about your audio, Margie.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Very happy. So these elections, we focused on creating videos and video interviews. We think those are very successful. We were actually able to broadcast them in the Day of the Dead event several times. So I'm sure a lot of people saw them while passing by. We since there's usually an assistance of, people go to the event for like 8,000 people were counted this year. So we think that's very helpful. Like Glenn, we also focused on translating and kind of interpreting the proposals of the pros and cons. Those were they're like puzzles. They're really hard to, because you never want to overstep, and so those were really hard to translate, and those were left in articles. So what we learned is, so next time I think people want information more diluted in a way. So translating that into audio and radio broadcasting, as well as videos, I think that would help a lot. Our target is also young people. A lot of we have like democracy workshops at Casa Círculo Cultural, and we usually ask what these young kids are thinking, and and they're usually really good at explaining the importance of voting, and we think that is also something we can grasp and move on to social media and others. This is apart from all of the social media and the canvassing and everything else that we do, the print newspaper. But I just focused on what I think really worked and what I think would work better. Not just leaving the proposals in written, but people need it more in other forms. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. I'll pass it over to Mike on the phone. Mike, do you want to share?
I don't know too much. Like I said, it was a lot of work back in September and October. I know we did phone banking on some of the groups and outreach, and of course the work that the VEOAC did. A lot of what I did personally had to do with the voting machines. So I'll basically bring a lot of that up at our meeting tomorrow. So
Okay.
I know there's going to be testing done, and every election they allow me to check the software and see what's going on, if they've made any changes, or it goes smoothly beginning to end. Most of what I did.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mike, for sharing. And then I'll read out loud what Margie said for our last comment. She said, sorry, Windows 11 isn't friendly to audio, still troubleshooting. Our challenges was the number of candidate forums needed due to having many cities, school districts, special districts to cover. It's great to know from Jim that voters do wait until election day to vote. We had many candidate sponsors that didn't want to do forums in the last 2 weeks of voting because everyone has voted. That compressed our candidate forum schedule and we couldn't do all that were requested of us. Thank you, Margie, for sharing that with us. I do know that you all put in a lot of work into these candidate forums, and on behalf of all of us here, thanks for that. I know it was a lot to cover, additionally to all the pros and cons and in-person sessions you all were doing. And if I missed anybody, please unmute now. If not, I'll hand it over to Petra.
Okay, and Pam is throwing something in the last minute, the high school students. So that is clearly a theme that getting the youth involved. So does anyone else have anything to add? Okay, I'd like to take like 2 minutes to brainstorm about our next meeting. I was thinking that it would be nice to invite some speakers for this time, for the next couple of meetings, to really get our ideas flowing. Diane, do you have ideas?
In terms of speakers?
Mm-hmm. Or topics? So one thing that I know is, go ahead.
Well, and obviously, just what else do we want to do in terms of targeting high school students? And then also, since we do have a new sheriff, there may be more openness to doing more with folks that are in the jails. We've tried in the past many times and never were able to get in on a regular basis. And I know this is something that Eric Sapp at the Legal Services for Prisoners with Children is very interested in doing as well. So maybe that would be something. How do we get to the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated to get them registered and educate them about voting?
Great. Yeah, and Eric apologized. He really wanted to come but couldn't make it. So he will be reaching out to Yahira to make sure that he stays in the loop with everything. We also thought about working with Faith in Action because they're doing some integrated voter engagement. So, and that's something I think we can definitely talk more about, which is just not focusing just on during election period, but really building up everyone's civic participation muscle. If you guys have other ideas, feel free to shoot Yahira an email. She would love to hear from you.
I'll pipe in for a second. I'm interested in the outreach to the homeless population, and I wonder if we could get some feedback from some of the homeless services providers about how that went, or if people know. That would be an interesting topic. And also I'll note that the county is about to open the Navigation Center in Redwood City, which has about 250, I keep forgetting if it's 250 rooms or 250 beds, but anyway, there'll be quite a number of people experiencing homelessness there for transitional purposes. And so that's just a population that I think is of interest to this group.
That's a great point. When are they opening? And that was amazingly fast that they built that.
Yeah, it was a really high priority and TBD, but March-ish.
Wow.
I'll keep you posted.
Terrific. I want to apologize that we weren't in person today. The place where we were going to meet had water damage. And so we were unable to meet. So next time we'll definitely do it in person, because I think that there's a lot of value of seeing everybody. And Yahaira will send out a nice follow-up email with Jim's slides. Jim, thank you for getting those to me already. That was terrific. And with that, if nobody has any last words, thank you all so much for coming. Hope to see you at other Thrive events, and we will definitely see you in a couple of months.